In Module 1, you learned about the feedback loop, which outlines the key elements of formative assessment practice. You'll recall that the feedback loop outlines the actions a teacher takes as they work to clarify the intended learning, elicit evidence of learning, and take responsive actions that will move learning forward. In Module 2, you will learn about 3 essential aspects to planning lessons with formative assessment: creating building blocks, determining learning goals, and establishing success criteria. The use of building blocks, learning goals, and success criteria are necessary preconditions for eliciting evidence of learning and responding effectively with instructional actions that will move learning to the next step forward. In other words, without these 3 elements in the lesson plan, formative assessment is difficult, if not impossible, to do. Let's look at each of these elements in turn. While standards provide a big picture of what students are expected to learn over the course of the year, they do not characterize in any detail how student learning incrementally progresses from one standard to the next. To ground both instruction and formative assessment, teachers need to understand the pathway that students likely take as they progress from the end of one grade level to the end of subsequent grade levels. Building blocks help teachers clarify important learning goals and recognize them as part of a bigger story in the development of expertise. With an understanding of how student learning incrementally progresses from one standard to the next, teachers can build explicit connections for students between and among goals as they move forward toward meeting the standard. Saying that in another way, building blocks provide the basis for formative feedback by clarifying the links between what is being learned and what will come next. In Module 2, you will learn a process for creating the building blocks that make up a pathway between standards, and then work with peers to develop building blocks for upcoming standards taught in your classroom. In the same way that building blocks are created through an analysis of content standards, learning goals are created through an analysis of building blocks. Learning goals clarify what students will learn as a result of the lesson, and they refer specifically to understanding, knowledge, skills, or application. Once learning goals are established, teachers can develop success criteria. These indicate how students will demonstrate their learning. Learning goals and success criteria are tightly aligned. Taken together, they enable both teacher and students to develop a conception of the goal being aimed for. Success criteria refer to concrete learning performances, something students will say, do, make, or write to indicate that they are moving toward the learning goal. Success criteria have special functions in the formative assessment, and that they serve as the interpretive framework by which formative evidence is analyzed. Both teachers and students analyze student learning in light of the success criteria. Learning activities are developed only after the learning goals and success criteria are established. Student learning activities are designed to engage students to meet the success criteria, and in this way move toward the learning goal. Learning goals and success criteria are tightly aligned. Taken together, the learning goal and success criteria enable both teacher and students to develop a conception of the goal being aimed for. Learning activities are developed only after the learning goals and success criteria are in place. Student learning activities are designed to engage students to meet the success criteria and thus the learning goal. Building blocks, learning goals, and success criteria form the foundation of formative assessment. They answer the question, where am I going? Through the work in this module, you will learn how to develop building blocks and how to use them to guide the development of learning goals and success criteria. Working with peers or on your own, you will explore how to use these tools to serve as a blueprint for thinking about what comes next in student learning, so that you can respond quickly and appropriately in the moment. You'll also consider new ways to encourage students to become active participants in their own learning through sharing and co-constructing learning goals and success criteria with your students.